Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to our 4th Commander 2016 upgrade video. Today we're going to focus on Entropic Uprising, and much like the other videos in the series, we're going to look at 20 cards that potentially could be cards you may want to consider if you want to upgrade this deck after making the purchase. We'll also explore some of the sub-themes in the deck and maybe some ways to make them stronger. Quickly before we get started though, if you check out the description below, you'll see some links to our Amazon affiliate store. If you make any purchases through any of those links, a small percentage does come back to help support the channel. It's always appreciated. And you also find links to our Patreon page, which is also another way that helps us make these videos and put them out for y'all. So thank you to everyone who considers those links and looks at those. Having said that, let's get into the cards and start talking about some upgrades for this deck. Alright, the first series of cards we're going to look at are going to be cards that will help bolster what the deck's already trying to do, basically. And we're going to start off with Fate Unravel Er, and we're going to see another card that's very similar to this in a few moments. But what's nice about this card is when you're playing those Wheel of Fortune style effects, you're making people discard cards and draw cards. They're going to be punished now, as long as it's on the battlefield, for drawing those cards. So if they have to draw 7 cards, they're taking 7 damage to do it. And it only works on opponents, doesn't hit you, which is really nice. It's also a pretty decent sized creature on top of it. It's a 3/4. Alright, Mages of the Wheel. So here's Wheel of Fortune on legs, basically. You get a 3/3 creature. Yes, it's a little expensive. It is a little slower when you compare it to the actual Wheel of Fortune. However, it's just another option. It's kind of a fun option and actually probably easier to find in some cases and a little cheaper than an original Wheel of Fortune if you want to go a little more budget. But yeah, it's a very cool card. It has amazing art too. It was from Commander last year, Commander 2015. Megrim. Okay, we talked about punishing your opponent for drawing the cards. Now, how do we punish them for discarding the cards? Well, that's what Megrim's going to do for us. So now, think of it this way. If you have Fate Unraveler and Megrim in play, and you're forcing an opponent with 7 cards to Wheel of Fortune, they're actually taking 21 damage off of that. They're taking 2 damage for each of the 7 cards that they discarded, then they're drawing 7 cards, taking 7 more damage. It's actually kind of amazing if you can get that to work. And if you want to pile on even more damage, here's Underworld Dreams, and this is much like Fate Unraveler. This is the original, I guess, version of it, and it was an enchantment. One thing I will point out, too, in these videos, since we're talking about Commander, I went for kind of the old, fun versions of the cards. This has been reprinted a couple times, and the text, the Oracle text, the newer text, is a little easier to understand. It does, in fact, affect all opponents, much like Fate Unraveler, basically the same wording. Now we'll move into some instants with Wheel and Deal, and yes, basically this is a targeted instant version of Wheel of Fortune, and you get to cantrip. Now you can't use it on yourself, which is actually, I think, a good thing in this deck, because part of the idea of this deck is really making your opponents cycle through their decks faster than you're cycling through yours, so that you don't get decked, and in some situations they will anyway. This allows you to just hit opponents and not yourself, and also to choose the opponents, which is interesting because it's kind of become as maybe a political card under certain circumstances. There'll be times when there's folks that will want this effect and times when folks won't want it, and you can maybe play into somebody's favor with this card a little bit. It cantrips for you, which is kind of nice. You draw a card, and again, it does work at instant speed, which is very unique. Scrambleverse. This one maybe is more for fun than anything. It's a chaos deck, so why not throw one of the ultimate chaos cards in there with Scrambleverse, right? Now, having said that, if you happen to draw this in your opening hand, you can kind of play around this a little bit. Try not to overcommit with permanents on the board. Just play your instants and sorceries, and then try to get this out as quick as you can. You might even get some advantage out of it. Although, of course, it is a very high variance card. It's not for everybody, but this is maybe kind of the fun pick of the day. And Wheel of Fortune. How can you have a Wheel of Fortune deck without Wheel of Fortune, right? So again, I picked the old version of Wheel of Fortune just for fun, but to be clear, the Oracle text does say it does hit all opponents. Now, fantastic card in this deck, obviously, and it's a little more pricey than some of the other cards we're seeing today, but if you want to go for the original, here it is. Alright, let's move into a whole different direction. What if you are really into Cascade? Maybe you want to bolster Cascade as a whole. Got a couple examples of that. Maelstrom Wanderer. If you're looking for cards that are going to add to the Cascade, this is a good one, and it's also a very good creature as well for Commander. Many times you see this as a Commander, and it's been reprinted a couple times recently, which is kind of nice. It's helped bring the value of the card down a little. Another card that goes really well with just the Cascade focus is Ancestral Vision. Now, this is really kind of a placeholder for a number of Suspend cards. There's a lot of great ones out there. There's this one, there's Lotus Bloom. So I kind of chose this to represent maybe all Suspend cards. You do want to be careful sometimes, though, when adding a card like this to your build, just due to the fact that you don't want to overcommit on card draw and get close to decking yourself before opponents. Alright, let's talk about a whole other direction you could go with this deck, and that's the Storm direction. Now, this feels a little spikier and might not be for all play groups, so this isn't necessarily everyone's idea of a good time with a deck like this. And in some ways, you could argue this might take some of the fun out of this deck, but Storm is very, very powerful, and I thought it's definitely worth talking about as a possibility. Now, Ad Nauseam is a great Storm enabler. If you were to include a card like this, you probably would have to overhaul the deck pretty strongly, though, because you don't want to hit too many large casting cost spells. Cabala Ritual, one of the great ritual style spells out there. It's going to help you get a lot of additional mana. The original Dark Ritual, where the idea of rituals came from, another classic card, helps you grow your mana base. High Tide, another very old card that works incredibly well in Storm builds. Dark Petition. Now, typically in these videos, I don't spend a lot of time on land bases and tutors because those are almost kind of self-explanatory when you play Commander. You're going to want a number of tutors if you can get a hold of them, and you're going to want to help your land base any way that you can afford to, right? So I usually don't mention those in the 20 cards, but Dark Petition I wanted to at least mention because I think sometimes it flies under the radar. It does see a little bit of Legacy Storm play, but basically the spell mastery, I just find it very interesting. Even though it costs 5 for a tutor, you have a good chance of getting 3 black mana back when you cast it, so it does feel almost like a demonic tutor in that way. So I just wanted to throw it out there, but really you could use any tutors you're comfortable with. Next we have Grape Shot, obviously one of your payout cards for the Storm deck. Mind's Desire, another big payout card for Storm, although it doesn't necessarily guarantee you a win, but if you have the right cards built around it, it could hopefully at least get you close. You get to play a lot of cards for free, potentially. Temporal Fissure, another way you could go all together with Storm. Notice this is return target permanent to its owner's hand, so you can actually pick up your opponent's lands with this and just really devastate the entire board state. Tendrils of Agony, another win condition for Storm. Time Spiral. Now, this one fits into Storm, but this actually could also work in what the deck's already trying to do if you tried to maybe bolster it with cards like Underworld Dreams and such, because this does have multi-purposes. First off, yes, of course, it's great in Storm, but if you cast this and you have Underworld Dreams out, you're doing damage to your opponents, that's kind of nice. This is also a nice panic button. If for some reason you're running low on cards in your deck, lower than your opponents, you can kind of reset the game a little bit with this. So it's kind of nice just to have. Now, it is a little more expensive than some of the cards we looked at today, and maybe even a little more spiky. But if you have it in your collection and you want to slide it in here, I think it's definitely going to do some good work for you. Finally, our last card of the day is Flux Reservoir. I wanted to find something from one of the newer sets, and this seemed like a good choice from Kaladesh. Works really well with Storm. Alright, having said that, those are 20 cards that are at least worth considering to upgrade or even change the direction of this deck a little bit. Now, this was a very unique deck. There was a lot of different ways you could go with this one. Some of the other decks feel like they're a little more solidified in what they're trying to do and are a lot harder to change. Like the deck we're going to look at next time, Invent Superiority, is a little harder to veer off into a weird direction with. But this deck does have a lot of open doors to do a lot of different things with. So until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.